Now, we'll start with the questions.
One of the problems with community organization is that you can use the same techniques, but if you don't have long-range aims, that is for social change, and even people can have different ideas or perspectives on social change, you can use basically the same techniques. They can end in a dead-end alley. That is, you can have social animators that want change, but want change just sort of to bring a certain modification in social services, things like that, where you can have long-term radical change, that is to radically change society. In your own movement, have you clearly defined what your long-term aims are?
That's a very good question. Let me answer it. And in this case, I can illustrate it too. You see, here are the people, and here's the organizer. And as long as they can see you, you're in good shape, they can follow you. But if you get this far, you're in trouble. So in order to get that far, you got to get the people at least this far. Because nothing happens without people. Nothing happens without people. People is the power. Nothing happens without people. And great social dreamers confine their ideas to books and they rot there. They rot because they don't have people to move it. People is the motive force.
One of the problems that I found is that I'm never really very sure in terms of, I can't see with that machine there. In terms of your own philosophy about community organization, do you see your goals as trying to change a system, or do you see your goals as trying to help a group of people negotiate that system? That is, if your strike is successful, what you've done really is shown that a system can work, that a system can be responsive to a group of people who are being maligned by it. On the other hand, if your strike fails and the system is not being successful, and perhaps what you need to do is change the system, how do you handle those two?
I'm not worried about that. I let the people do those changes. See, I'm not going to dictate to people. One of the biggest problems in community organization, any organization, is people get very concerned about the goals. And they give little attention to people. Today we've been talking about the practical aspects of organizing. And you've got, see, you'll go as far as people want you to go, not any further. If you think you're going to lead people, you don't lead people. People don't have to be led. You may be the symbol, but that's about as much as you can be. People have clear defined ideas of what they want, and they will get only as much as they want. And so, why worry about the goals when we don't even have an organization yet?
The question is, how do you see your movement in opposition to the labor unions or political movements? You define yourself as a grassroots organization, and what difference between this grassroots and other as unions who start more with a plan of change from the top?
Well, you see, all movements, all groups, all workers, all community organizations start at the same point. It's only what happens after they become successful that makes a difference between success and beginning or failure. See what I mean? Every union in the world, I'm sure, started with some very lofty, very idealistic motives. Along the way, those are sacrificed. Now, but not only unions, almost any human institution goes through that. How do we prevent that from happening? Well, it hasn't really, the answer hasn't really been found, That's why it's an ideal. Except in some very, I think about the only group in the United States that I know of, there may be others, but that I know of, that's kept those ideals now for 300 years, And even now they're having some great difficulties because of the outside pressures and influences are the yeah, it's not emergency. Yeah. The Hutterites. Have you heard of the Hutterites?
Yeah.
Probably. But they have a society within a society, see? They're closed in, they're isolated, and they keep themselves that way. And they keep their ideals, but when you're in the world, you will be bitten by the world. You know, I haven't gotten one question yet related to community organizations.
J'ai poursuivi une question qui est vraiment directement touchant à l'organisation communautaire. Il y en a deux.
At the beginning, when you were talking about the community organizer being a person who cannot take holidays and must be there 7 days a week, all 24 hours a day, it sounds to me like you're building into the movement an indispensable person. And it seems to conflict with what you talked about afterwards about having the people take responsibility for their own decisions and building their own movement.
That would be true if we were to eliminate 2 or 3 truisms. One is that as a body periodically has a very bad cold to clean itself, leaders get disposed almost inevitably, almost always. See, when the people feel they don't need them anymore, they get rid of them. It always happens. Like in the United States right now. And the other thing is, see, that if you don't multiply, then you haven't got anything. See, if you do this work, then others are going to imitate you, and pretty soon you're multiplying yourself.
Then you become less indispensable and really could leave the movement for a time.
No, see, you never become indispensable. The people force you to be. So, I mean, you never accept that you never accept that the movement can do without you. Like, for instance, if you ask me, sometimes I say, what's going to happen if I go? And then I say, hey, will this thing go or will it not go? I say, it'll be a tremendous tribute if it continue going, but maybe it won't go. And I say, well, the people aren't fools, they'll find out. See what I mean?
When they're ready to let you go, they'll let you go.
They ask you to
let
leave.
you go, they'll let
They ask you to leave. Because then you become, see, the moment it's like eating something that doesn't agree with you. After you don't need it, you throw it out, right? And a key person in the organization, see after the people, it happens for various reasons. Some good reasons, some bad reasons. You understand? For instance, if the second generation of a movement can continue going with the same ideals as the founders, it's quite a thing. Usually it doesn't happen. Usually before the founders, like all of us here in the movement who founded the movement, before all of us are out of the movement, if we live our lives in the movement, there will be a second generation taking over, and we will see definite changes being made. See? At that point then, you make up your mind, you challenge those changes, and at that point people say, we don't need you anymore. Because it isn't like what it used to be. A lot of young people in the union say today, that old organizer always gets up and talk about the 30s and about the great CIO drives. We don't want to hear about that, we want to hear about right now. See? They're really saying, your time's gone.
Okay.
So don't worry about it. No, that's just a college trip. Don't worry about that. No, in reality it doesn't
The
happen that way.
question was, how do you see your indispensability as a leader of the union or the movement in conflict with building responsibility and having more people take over the leadership? To me, it sounds like that's in conflict.
No, because there's so much work that like right now I'm trying to get this guy to speak for me. He won't do it, you know. But I'm going to have him do the next one by himself. No, you see, a lot depends a lot really depends what pressures you have. If you had a movement that you control, if you can control all the pressures against the movement, you can afford to do that. See what I mean? You can say, oh, don't move it. I'm going to do this, and you don't do that. But when you have when you have more opposition and more things being thrown at you, you got to say, hey, help me with this one, you know. You take that one, I'll take this one. See what I mean? Marshall has some more further thoughts on the question.
No, Marshall, just about what you were talking about. It seems to me you have the idea that, like, the organized, well, it's this kind of a dream that the job of the organizer is to kind of set up this machine and then get out of it as quick as possible.
No, all I was
Now-
saying that is if you can give a speech this afternoon, then Mr. Chavez could take a holiday this afternoon because he's built you up to a point where you can take over some functions of his.
Well, but see, the problem is, well, as Cesar said, the problem is that there's so damn much to do in a real organization, where you're in a real fight and where you're facing real opposition, that there is so much work and responsibility that needs to be spread around that that's not a problem. See, the problem is your own attitude. See, now, if you're serious about organizing, and if the aims of the organization are serious, I mean really serious, and the work and the responsibilities are very serious, so you can't afford to kind of work yourself out of it. What you have to do is multiply as many people like yourself as you can. But you don't do that by stepping away, you do that by stepping in, see? You set an example, and you bring other people along with you, and that's how you multiply yourself, see? Not by stepping back out and saying, well, now it's time for me to get out, because then people may follow that example too, see? Now, see, in one situation, organizing can be like a game, where it's a game to get this thing going and then step back and then it falls apart anyway. In another way, it's something real in which you, by being an organizer and by starting to move people, you assume tremendous responsibilities towards those people, see? Because you can't be really, you can't organize without being a leader. I mean, you can't separate the two things. I mean, I know that a lot of people think you can, and think that you can organize off here without being a leader of the without leading the people, but you can't.
You can move a group within the movement. You can organize a group and be prepared to move back at that point, as long as you're within the movement.
As you develop somebody to take your place to do that work,
Because you
that's
become
right.
indispensable to each little
But you do that by developing people to
Yeah.
take your
Okay.
place.
We're not-
See?
no.
You don't do that by
You
stepping
don't
off
get too
and...
far.
Okay.
I think that we don't have any more time for any more questions. I was a little disappointed that I didn't get any questions about the things I talked about, really coming to grips with community organization. But then, so many of you didn't ask questions, so I'm betting on the silent majority that you did have those questions and they were answered. Thank you very much.
Stick around.
Next time, we'll get into some more. Thank you.
Okay.